Hi guys, happy 2024. So I'm going to share all of the books that I read and what I rated them, and I'll kind of give you like the stats, I think, if you can if I can find them. Okay, so I use Goodreads and Fable to track like the books that I read. But this year I think I'm going to be doing something different. I'm going to still like keep track like on Goodreads and Fable and stuff, but I made like a Notion. I saw Destiny Sedwell do this and I just think it's like a great idea. So I made a page just for reading, so I like put like books that I want to read. And then like I'm going to try and do like an ABC challenge where I read like everything in the ABC. I don't know. But what I'm gonna do is I have this tracker here, so I'll put the name of the book, what month I read it, and then the genre, pages read, and then the rating. And then if like if I like type a book, you can like expand it like that, or you like put stuff in there. So what I'm gonna do is I will give like a description in my own words of like what happened, and then like quotes, just anything about the book that stands out to me, and like my like very elongated review, just because I think like when I read, it's hard for me to like remember names or like big stuff that happens. So I think this will help me keep track of everything. Yeah, and then that way I can do like my own statistics of like, oh, I read this many books in this genre and da da da. Yeah, I totally copied that from Destiny Steadwell. So so my Goodreads says that I read 18 books, and then I read 6,672 pages. The shortest book that I read was Cruel Winter with You, which was 73 pages, and then Magnolia Park's Long Way Home was 645 pages. Then my average book length is 370 pages, which seems about right. And then my most shelved was Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And then my least shelved was my December Darling. And then my average rate was 3.5. Then my highest rated was The Great Undoing. Yeah, so I've only hit my challenge once, and that was when I set it to 30 and I read 34 books. And then last year I read 20 books. Just like, what is going on with my brain? I don't know. But anyways, so I thought that I would go through all the books that I read and tell you what they're about, if I recommend them, my rating, stuff like that. The first book that I read in 2024 was Magnolia Park's A Long Way Home. I read this book a year ago, so I don't remember much of what happened, but it's if you don't know, it's based on BJ and Magnolia Parks, their relationship, and their on and off complicated relationship. And this series isn't like my favorite series. Like, I don't like eat it up every time, just because like it's confusing sometimes, and like sometimes I'm like, are they together or are they not? Like, I forget because they're just so like on and off, which I feel like it can be like very realistic, like to portray that, but at the same time sometimes it's just like, girl, like, what is going on? Like, do you like him? Do you not? Like, yes, he did very many horrible things to you, but like, you stay with him, so you're giving him, I don't even know. I rated it 4 stars, which I feel like is not right. I feel like I would rate that 3 stars. This is good because then I can like review my ratings and stuff. So yeah, I'd give this 3 stars. I liked the book. It's not like one of my favorites, but it is a book that I do think about a lot. I read this book, and then the 4th one, I still have to read the 5th one. And then I'll be over with the series. I don't know if there's gonna be any more books. Not quite sure. The next book that I read was Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. And I don't even know why I read this book. I think I was like looking up like Kindle Unlimited books to read for like mystery thriller, and this popped up and it seemed interesting, so I read it. This book has so many like trigger warnings, and I feel like if you have like a sensitive stomach or anything like that, don't read this book. But it's basically about these two sisters. One of them, like, her house gets robbed, and she thinks that, or her husband is dead, but like things are coming back about her husband that just like don't really make sense. And these two sisters, they're, I think, younger. It might be younger or older, I don't know. But she goes missing, and 20 years later another girl goes missing, and they think that like it's linked to it. The only thing that I will complain about is there is so many different like perspectives throughout the book, and you are like so confused. Really, you really are. You're like, what is going on? And then finally it kind of pieces together, and like once I got to the end, I was there. Like the thriller and the stuff like that, like the plot twist, you're like, oh my god. But I rated this 3 stars because, again, I did like it. I do think it is very gory, and like weird, like bad stuff happens in this book, but it is very like thrilling, and like it does get your heart pumping. So we love that in a thriller, don't we? Yes, we do. Okay, so the next book that I read was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I was very late in the game reading this. But it's basically about this woman who was very like successful in like acting and stuff, and she hires someone, I think a journalist, to write her story. And so she finally like gets to like tell her story, and I really liked this book. It did make me cry. I feel like the reporter and Evelyn Hugo, they have like kind of a lot of like similarities a little bit, which I appreciated. And gosh, I literally read this in March, so like I don't remember that much of it, but I did like highlight and stuff, so that is a good sign. But I rated this 4 stars, which now looking back, like I feel like it should be 3 stars. Okay, so the next book that I read was a reread of my favorite book, always will be my favorite book, is Daisy Jones and the Six. I wanted to go back and like highlight and annotate a bunch, which I feel like I really did not do, because like looking back, like I did not highlight and annotate that much. But again, I did read this in like a book slump. But if you don't know what this book is about, where have you been? It's basically about this band that is set in like the 60s, 70s. Daisy like gets like, she ends up having like her own career, but it's not doing too well, so she ends up getting with the Six. So it's called Daisy Jones and the Six. The author, I think, has said that it's based on Fleetwood Mac. But I just love everything about this. Daisy is someone who I wish I could be in another lifetime. Like, she is just the coolest person ever. Strong, beautiful, talented, like, I don't know. And it's in like an interview form, so like everyone that's talking is like in an interview. And I just, when I read this, I had the intention of like being like, okay, like I'm in a reading slump, I'm gonna reread my favorite book, and hopefully it'll help me want to read more. And this book reminds me of why I love reading, which I could get sentimental about this book, but It is just like my favorite book ever. Rated 5 stars, obviously. Always will be rated 5 stars, which I get really nervous rereading like books that I love because I'm scared that like when I do reread a book, I don't love it as much and then it won't be 5 stars, which I was kind of nervous about that, but it's the same. It is the same. The next book I read was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I was not really a fan of this book. I just thought it was very like boring to me, and like it kind of just felt like a copycat of Knives Out, and I did not really like that because Knives Out is one of my favorite movies. The like plot twist of it was kind of like, okay, like yeah, it was pretty cool, whatever, but like I don't know, I just was not really a fan of it. I rated it 3 stars, which now looking back, I'd probably rate it like 2 stars. I don't know why I rated it 3, but I did not really like it. If you don't know what it's about this girl who gets like inheritance from this like random person that she's never met, and she's like really confused why she got it, and like his family's like really confused why she got it as well, and so they like are trying to figure out why she got the inheritance, and his like grandsons are like helping her, and so there is like a little bit of romance, which was nice, but yeah, I don't know, I just was not infatuated with it. I was not a fan, so I will not continue reading this series. I thought I was going to, and the only reason that I read it was because it was on Kindle Unlimited, but it's not even on there anymore. The next book that I read was Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which this book was like all the rage. One of my old coworkers was like, you need to read Powerless, and I agree. I loved this book. I am not a fantasy reader at all. I have so many fantasy books. You can't even see them. You can't see, but this whole bottom shelf is like all fantasy books, and I really do like want to read fantasy, and I do want to be a fantasy reader, but for me it just takes too much like brain power. Usually it's like very like government based, which I'm not really a fan of at all, but Powerless I really liked. If you're not a fantasy reader like me, I definitely recommend starting with Powerless, because it was very like, it was so much easier to read than like A Court of Thorns and Roses. But it's basically about this what is it called? Kingdom? It's about this kingdom who, like, if you don't have powers, you are, like, dead. Like, you do not belong in the kingdom. Like, you bring illness or whatever. So, Peyton, she, like, has, like, a really bad, like, upbringing. Like, her, I think her mom died really young, and so did her dad, and, like, she only has like this one like really good friend, and she's a thief as well, but she pretends to have powers, and she acts like she's psychic, and everyone's like, oh my god, like she's actually psychic, like this is crazy. But she falls in love with the son of the king, and he I forget what the word is, but he like gets rid of anyone that doesn't have powers. Ordinary? Yeah, he gets rid of the ordinary people. And so then they have this like kind of like Hunger Games-esque thing where you get picked to like battle, and she gets picked, but also the guy who kills the ordinaries gets picked also. So they like end up being like an ally and they end up falling in love and da-da-da-da. So it's really good, really, really good. I have not read the novella or the second one. I have not heard good things about the second one. I heard the novella is like okay, so that definitely is on my TBR for the year, but I rated this 4 stars because it like blew me away how easy it was to read compared to the other fantasy books that I've read. So the next book that I read was Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. It was again one of those other things that was like on like Kindle Unlimited recommended that I read. It kind of reminds me of Pretty Girls, but basically this girl goes missing, and then not too long this mom and her daughter go missing. It's like definitely you can tell like it's connected, but again it has like different perspectives and it can get confusing a little bit. The plot twist was not like very jaw-breaking at all. Like it kind of like was something that I had a thought in my mind while reading it. Yeah, I rated it 3 stars, just mid. The next book that I read was Happy Place by Emily Henry, but basically it's about this couple. I think they were engaged. Let me look. I think they were engaged. I could be wrong, but they broke up. And every year their like whole friend group goes to a lake house, I think. They go to like a lake house, and her and her BF broke up, but she hasn't told anyone because they're all like really close. And she gets there and he's there, and they're like, fuck, like we have to act like we broke up or we haven't broke up even though we did. And I really liked it. It's not my favorite Emily Henry book. I definitely love Beach Read the most, but yeah, it was a really good book, a very good a very good romance. See, this is why I should not do these books, because I was in a reading slump basically the whole entire year until, yeah, that was it. Like I was basically in a reading slump. And when I'm in a reading slump, like I don't really care about like the plot, like I don't really care about what's going on, like I'm just reading to read at this point. So I am not good at like telling people what the book's about and like if you should read it or not. So I should not be doing this video, but I am. So we're here, so we're gonna do it. The next book I read was Cruel Summer by Morgan Elizabeth. I read the first one the end of 2023, I want to say. No, 2022. And that book was just the reason for the season, or Revenge. 'Tis the Season of Revenge, I think is what it's called. That book I read in like one sitting. It was so juicy and spicy and I loved it. I ate it up. So I read the second one and it's called Cruel Summer, obviously because I just said that. And I really liked the second one. It was not as good as the first. The first one is the tier, but the second one was very spicy and it had an age gap in it, which was the first one too. And it's funny because I was talking to my coworker because she read the first one too, and she's not a fan of age gap, so she was like hardcore judging it, and I really didn't mind the age gap. So basically this girl is like a wedding planner. Yeah, she's a wedding planner, and she's planning this wedding, but these girls, like the bride and groom's kids are really like mean to her for no reason at all, which is so like funny to me because like I don't even think they're the same age. Like, I think they're a little bit younger, but they were, like, being so mean. They were just, like, being so mean, and so she ends up, like, going to this bar, and she falls in love with the bartender, and then, that's, okay. Then she finds out that the bartender's daughter is one of them that are being really mean. Which I don't know if that's a spoiler. I don't think it is. I rated it 3 stars, which I agree with. I did really like the romance, but it was quite cheesy. There was times where I was cringing a little bit. I did like it. I would recommend. And then the next one I read was Halloween Party by Agatha Christie, which I rated this 2 stars. Now, hear me out. I am not a classic reader. I really wish I was. Like, classics and fantasy, like, those 2 genres, I really wish I could read and, like, love. But I'm not very good at it. It was very short. Like, I think I read most of it, like, listening to it, like, on audiobooks. It wasn't, like, terrible, but I feel like the plot twist was not that good. But basically, there's like a Halloween party. I think she drowns by like getting her head in the apple bobber. Like, she drowns in the water and that. So they're trying to figure out like who did it. And yeah, I did not really like it. It was just kind of like mid. The next book that I read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. And how many books have I read of Riley Sager? I think only 2. Basically, this girl grew up in this house that was haunted, and the dad, like, wrote a book about it. Her dad dies, so she gets the inheritance for the house. This book was very, like, spooky. Like, I remember finishing this, like, at night, and I was spooked. Like, I was scared. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I think the reason why I'm in such a, like, book slump is I have not read a book that, like, keeps me up at night. Like, when I'm reading and I, like, don't fall asleep. Like, I feel like that's my problem, is I haven't read a book where, like, I don't know if, like, other people, like, feel this way or, like, get this feeling, but, like, when you are reading late at night and it's past your bedtime, you're like, I have to go to bed. But this book is so good. I have not had that feeling, I want to say, since The Housemaid. I read that book in one sitting. I think I read the first chapter the night before, and then the next day I read the whole book. And I have not had that feeling since The Housemaid, which sucks. And it's usually, like, it's not even with, like, romance books. Like, I feel like that's not happened to me where I, like, maybe it has. Like, probably with, like, the bromance book club, like, I would, like, stay up late to read those books. But I do not remember it must have been The Housemaid, which I read, I think, in 2023. So it sucks. I think that's why I'm in such a book slump, is because I have not had that experience. Because I feel like lately, like, if I, like, do my skincare or whatever and I go in bed, I'm, like, out. Like, I fall asleep. Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. What was I saying? I don't remember. So she ends up going to the house to, like, get it redone because she wants to, like, resell it. But, and, like, she's just trying to, like, remember things that happened in her childhood and, like, if what he wrote in the book was actually real. So she's, like, trying to figure it out, and then you get, like, the perspective of him, or you actually read his book, and you get the perspective of that, and then you get, like, what happened in the house. So yeah, it was kind of creepy, and I liked it because it was more, like, ghosty, which I don't think I've read, like, a lot of, like, paranormal horror books or whatever. Like, maybe, like, Pet Sematary, but that's about it. Yeah, I rated it 4 stars. Loved it. Okay, then I read Spookily Yours by Jennifer Chipman. I loved this book. I loved it. I rated it 4 stars. But this is, like, the perfect, like, everything that I love in a Halloween book, this is what that book is. So basically, this girl, this witch, she gets a cat, and the cat is like acting strange. Like, he's weird. Turns out the cat is a demon. And so she uses her powers to make him a demon, I guess, instead of a cat. I just really love the romance in this, and I love that, like, she was a witch and he was a demon. Like, I feel like that's just, like, perfect. And then you, like, find out why he's there on Earth instead of hell. So, yeah, loved it. Then, the last physical book, actually, no, that's not, I have 2 more physical books, but I read All of Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue, which I have, when I went to Barnes & Noble and I saw this book, I read the back, and I was like, I have to get this. Like, this is perfect. I've never even heard anyone read this. But basically, it's about this girl who, she's kind of like, she's troubled, I guess, in school, you could say. So she gets detention, and she's cleaning out the, like, basement's closet, and she finds this tarot card set. So she, like, learns how to use it, whatever. And then you find out that she used to have a best friend, and she was just not a good friend to her, and just, like, completely ghosted her and was like, oh, we're not friends anymore, bye. She ends up going missing, and they're like, where did she go? And so you're, like, trying to figure out what happened, and I really liked this book. It was such a good, like, I don't even think it's young adult, but it has, like, everything. It's, like, based in Ireland, I think, and there's magic, there's kind of, like, witchy, like, stuff. There's, like, a couple, like, I think in the beginning it shows some of the tarot cards, like this, which I just thought was cool. And it's very, like, magical, spiritual-esque book, and I loved it. I rated it 4 stars. But it is a series, so I will be reading the 2nd and 3rd one. Then I read The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. It's basically about this girl who goes on a date, and it's, like, really, really sketchy. And her date, like, while he's, like, kind of being really weird, she finds, or there's this guy that, like, helps her out and is like, are you okay, da 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 da. Then she ends up dating him, but, like, it's really, really sketchy. Like, he's, like, hiding, like, really weird stuff. And yeah, that's basically it. I read this book pretty fast, I want to say, but when I found the plot twist, I literally, like, the way that it ended too, I literally was just staring at the ceiling for, like, 5 minutes trying to comprehend what just happened, because it was like, plot twist, do. Like, there's a point where, like, you're like, oh my god, this is exactly what happens, and then, like, once it gets to the end, you find out everything, and then you're like, oh, so that's how we're gonna end things, okay. So yeah, I rated it 4 stars just because of that factor, that, like, I was, like, literally looking at the ceiling, like, what did I just read? And then I read Daisy Hates the Great Undoing, which is based on Christian and Daisy, which I definitely like Christian and Daisy more than Magnolia and BJ. Not that, like, I feel like Daisy is less toxic. Yeah, but it also shows Julian, who is Daisy's brother, his, like, love interest, which I don't think happened in the first Christian and Daisy book. I could be totally wrong. I probably am, but I don't remember reading a romance with them in it. I don't know. Rated it 4 stars, which seems about right. Then I read this short story called Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood. It was on Kindle Unlimited. I guess there's, like, a bunch of authors that were doing, like, short story Christmas books. So I read it, and again, it was kind of, like, pretty mid. I read it pretty fast because it was a short book. But it's about this girl who, her, like, friend's brother is, like, obsessed with her, but he's, like, really troubled, and then something happens where they, like, don't like each other, and then, like, a few years later she, like, goes to his house to drop something off because her dad told her to, and they kind of, she like gets stuck there because there's like a big winter storm. Pretty mid. I feel like I shouldn't even rate it, to be honest. Then the last book of 2024 was My December Darling by Lauren Asher. This was, I feel like, a rave this year, and I really liked it. I really ate it up, I'm not gonna lie. I listened to most of it on audiobook, but basically it's like a small town romance. They're like both the doctors, and she's there for her sister's wedding, and I think he is the best man. And yeah, it's just like a very cutesy, not that cheesy romance, and I ate it up. 3 stars. That is all the books that I read. Let's see how many I read this year. I'm really not sure. I'm not sure how it's gonna go. Thank you guys for watching. I love you. We'll read again, hopefully. And yeah, love you.